Welcome to my final lecture on ethical theories or moral reasoning. And this lecture is for the third theory, virtue ethics. So, introduction to virtue ethics. It's focused on the action. So, the ontological theory argues that an action is right or wrong depending on the rule. It focuses more on the character of the actor or the person performing the act, and raises the question, what kind of person should I be? It is concerned about person good and not really about what is right. So being a good person is more than doing the right thing. Doing the right thing is referring to the actions. We have clarified a while back that for the virtue ethicist, the concern is what makes a good person, the character of the actor. So it's not enough that a person does the right thing. The focus rather is on being a good person. A bad person can be seen to be doing what is right, such as organized crime heads who give annual projects to the poor in his neighborhood. So the point is focusing on doing the right thing is still consistent with a bad person capable of doing the right thing. Meaning, the consistency is between the person and the action. What this view wants to secure is the notion that a good action, okay, can only flow from a good person. Okay? So the examples here is the focus is on the good person because a bad person can still do something good or can appear to do something good. Moving on, this means judging an act to be right or wrong in itself or based on its results is not enough. Virtue ethics require that we consider the character and the motives of the actor. Okay? It is therefore concerned with identifying the character of a virtuous person and distinguishing it from the character of a vicious one. The virtuous person, of course, is the good one, and the vicious is the bad one. Sa Tagalog, we call it mabisyo. The virtuous person is not only one who does the right thing, rather, the virtuous person is one who consistently does the right acts. Focus on that consistently for the right motives. Again, you see here the connection between the person and its character and the motives or the reasons behind why the actor did it. The actions here are still part of the motivation, but the focus is the character and the motives. This ethical theory is very much based on, or the most famous ethical theory or proponent for this is Aristotle's ethics. So Aristotle lived between 384 to 322 BC at Stagira, Macedonia, and known as the most prominent student of Plato. Later, he became a tutor to Alexander of Macedonia and started his own school in Athens at age 49 called the Lyceum. Well, please be reminded that Plato was the one who first had a formal school in Western history. We call that Plato's Academy. Aristotle lectured also on 400 works. His ethics is contained in his philosophical treatise called the Nicomachean Ethics. It is the first systematic treatment of ethics in the Western civilization. It's called Nicomachean because it is named after his son Nicomachus, who supposedly edited the work later. So Aristotle started his treatise with a definition of good. Quote unquote, every art and every inquiry, and similarly every action and pursuit, is thought to aim at some good. The point here is, we have to realize and understand that anything we do is actually directed at some good, at least from the view of the agent. And for this reason, the good has rightly been declared to be that at which all things aim. So we have here the good as the aim. The good, therefore, is whatever one seeks and pursues as worthwhile. So we have examples here of goods that we aim for, some goods that we seek and pursue, which each and every one understood or desires as worthwhile. Health, wealth, power, victory, intelligence, courage, perseverance, fortune, honor, and the like. There are a lot more. You can add all goods that you can think of. But Aristotle's point is these are actually goods for another's sake and not in themselves. Ano ibig sabihin nito? No? When you say goods for another's sake, these, for example, are that goods and whatever it is that you added in the list. But we pursue these goods not because in themselves they are the final goods. We pursue these goods because we see that if we have this, then we can have another good. So there is always something good for which reason these goods above are pursued. So these are called instrumental goods. So salita pa lang instrumental, that means they are means, they are ways. They are not end goals in themselves. Meaning, we pursue these goods because if we do have these goods, there is or there are more goods after that we achieve if we do have this. Kaya instrumental, no? Ginagamit lang natin sila to pursue goods beyond them. So Aristotle seeks for the good for its own sake. Aristotle agreed that all those are goods, but what he was aiming at is the good for its own sake. An end which determines all desires intrinsically and ultimately. Okay? Not instrumental. So consider this question to understand what Aristotle asked about. Imagine that you already have health, wealth, power, victory, and so on and so forth. Can you finally say that you have a perfect life and no more desires or wants? Okay, you can add more, all goods you can think of. Imagine that you all have these goods. Does this stop you from desiring more? Okay. Of course, that is a big question. No? If you agree that you don't stop there, you must realize as well why all those goods are called instrumental good. Kasi nga, hindi sila yung final. No? Hindi sila yung ultimate. These are all means. That's why instrumental. To achieve something else that is also good in itself. Or pwede rin kasing we pursue education, instrumental good yon, to achieve what? Wealth. Wealth is also an instrumental good because after wealth, what now? Diba? So, pwede rin kasi we need to achieve an instrumental good to gain another instrumental good, as it were. But again, what Aristotle is trying to aim at is the final and ultimate good. Hence, telos, end, as the Greek portrayed. But what is that good? Aristotle wrote, quote unquote, what is always chosen as an end in itself and never as a means, to something else, is called final, no, in an unqualified sense, meaning walang qualification. We don't say if, then, kung ganito, di, walang ganon, no? This description seems to apply to the one, happiness above all else. For we always choose happiness as an end in itself, no? And never for the sake of something else. So you can again think of this. Ginawa natin dito na question. So just imagine what can make you happy. Graduate, finish this course. Sige, let's say you pass ethics, you pass all your exams. Are you done? Are you contented? Happy ka na ba? Of course not. You need to become PTRP. You need to become engineers. Okay? Okay, engineer na kayo. PTRP na kayo. Are you happy now? Are you contented? Hindi pa. You need a good car. You need a good house. Perhaps family later. You need wealth. You need... Actually, you won't stop it. And you will realize at the end of all this is striving, as Aristotle argued, is this. Yeah, you just want to be happy, no? And all of these goods, lahat ng in-identify natin, are mere instruments, as they were, I'm sorry, to achieve happiness. So Aristotle refers to the Greek term Eudaimonia, hence this one, which is translated roughly into happiness. Pero the closest translations to Greek is well-being, flourishing, or living well. And this is the highest good, or the end of human life, as Aristotle suggested or argued for. If at the end of all our strivings, if at the end of all the goods that we pursued, there's only one thing, we just want happiness, then that is the end. That's the highest good. So all instrumental goods are aimed at this. And these do not really contain happiness. Anong these? Yung mga instrumental goods. Okay? Happiness is not identical with the new iPad. An iPad and happiness are two different things. iPad can make you happy. But iPad is not happiness because when you feel you need rather a MacBook, then you won't be that happy with your iPad anymore, right? So it's one very easy way of telling you that happiness is not in those things. Okay? Rather, these instrumental goods are used to gain happiness only. So, eudaimonia or happiness as telos, as the highest good. But then, what is that highest good in which ultimate happiness consists? Okay? Well, we are aiming for that ultimate happiness, di ba? Pero ano yung bagay na yon? Ano yung highest good na yan that will really make us ultimately happy? Which, these are the three characteristics of the highest good para hindi kayo malito. A highest good must be final. That means nothing greater than it. Ito na talaga. It's the greatest and highest good, no? Another characteristic is it's self-sufficient. That means not dependent on other goods. Okay? So, the highest good is good in itself. Kaya tinawag siyang intrinsically good. It's not good because other goods make it so. Rather, it is good because it is good in itself. Its goodness suffices on its own. Wala nang ibang goods na sumusuporta sa pagiging good nito. Okay. Unlike for example sa isang masarap na pagkain na ulam, yung mga sahog, yung mga ingredients, ang sumusuporta for that ulam to be so delicious. Yung kanyang sabor, yung kanyang salt, pepper, onions, spices. Without this, hindi masarap yung ulam. Okay? When we say self-sufficient, on it, in itself, without other goods that support it, it is good in itself. And third, attainable in this life. So Aristotle argues that the goodness of something resides in the proper function of that thing. Right, di ba? We were asking, ano tong highest good? Kung saan nandun yung happiness? Aristotle argues that the goodness of something resides in the proper function of that thing. Itong highest good na to, itong highest good na yan, nasa proper function. The proper function of that thing is its essence or proper nature. Hence, happiness is the fulfillment of that nature. So Aristotle here argued that yung highest good mo, nakadepende yan sa essential nature mo. At yung essential nature mo, nakikita mo yan sa function mo, which is called ergon. So your highest good can be understood only if you know your ergon, essential nature. So to be able to know the happiness of a human person is to know first the essence or proper nature of the human person. This will clarify the proper function of a human person. The ultimate happiness for human persons is the performance of that function. Okay? So you'll be happy lang daw talaga if you perform that essential function. Parang, imagine mo, what is the nature of the furniture we call chair? Well, its nature is to support a human being in a sitting position. A sitting position is needed for a lot of human actions. No? We use the sitting position for watching, for eating, for writing, and the like. But the essential nature of a chair, its structure, its size, its design, is to fit the needed comfort of a human person in a sitting position. That's the essential nature of a chair. That differentiates a chair from other furnitures. Because other furnitures also have their essential nature, depending on what human action they correspond to. A table is a furniture, but what human action does a table serve? No? Ano yung function. Kaya konektado yung nature sa function. And we sometimes define a chair according to its use. Diba? Yung function niya. Furniture used for sitting. Okay? So, there is a close relation between function and nature, or this is the function of something because it is in the first place has this nature, or it has this nature. Ngayon, going back to the chair, kailan ba nagagamit ng tama yung chair? Pag nakatambak ba sa bodega, is tama yung kanyang hindi, di ba? So parang ganun yung gusto nating puntahang yung punto rito, no? Na what will really make you happy? Well, it's not in those things we have enumerated a while back, because these are mere instrumental goods and we pursue this for happiness, right? But what is happiness? Yun na yung tanong. What can really make humans happy? Well, function, no? The happiness is in the fulfillment of that nature, sabi nga. Okay? So the Greek term ergon refers to the proper function, or to that property which sets something apart from other things. What then is the ergon of a human being? So life and nourishment, yun ba yung nature natin? Pero it's not unique. Okay, why? Because plants and animals also have that. How about sensation and passion? Again, hindi rin ito unique. Bakit? Kasi animals also have that as well. So what remains in the person that only human person has, and which sets apart from other creatures? Well, there's only one, no? Reason. Okay? Our essential nature, what makes us humans, is our reason. And that is tied to our function, no? As we did analogously to the chair a while back. Okay? So according to Aristotle, the proper and peculiar end of a human being, therefore, is in accord with a person's function. So yung end natin, yung telos natin, yung goal ng pagiging tao, being human, must be in accord, no, with that function, with the ergon. Okay? So if our nature, ito na, no, let's drive home the point. If our nature is rational, our function therefore is to live a life in accordance with that nature. Okay? Ano ba? How do you live your life ba? Do you live your life in accordance with nature? Or with reason, I should say? Or some other aspects of human living? Okay? There are human beings whose lives were focused on sensory, di ba? Sensation and passion. Oh, di sayang. Kasi hindi ka lang animal. Okay? You have other capacities that go beyond what animals can. So if you are living a life in sensation and passion, you are not living in accordance with your nature. Okay? So, the function, the ergon, of a human person must be in accord with the human person's nature. And what is that nature? Rational nature. So, your function as a human being must be in accord to that nature. Happiness consists then in the fulfillment of that function and nature. Happiness is no other than fulfilling your function and nature. At ano yan? Rational function and nature. Human happiness, eudaimonia. What is eudaimonia again? Diba? Nasaan na siya? Yan, no? Well-being, flourishing, living well. Okay? And highest good, yung pinaka-end natin, na pinaka-highest, no? Is, ito, a life in accord with reason as our proper function. But how can we attain such life? In the midst of other human faculties that are desirable and interesting, such as those that go with our desires and passion. Ito na naman yung matinding tanong. Okay, let's tanggapin na natin, no? Our function and nature is rational. Therefore, our end goal in life is to live in accord to reason, and that alone will make us happy. Okay? Pero paano tong mga desirable din, no? You cannot say no to that because we feel them. Okay? Ito sabi ni Aristotle, making reason prevail over other human faculties such as desire and passion consist in what? Okay? Cultivating and enhancing our rational faculty in its most excellent manner. Okay? So, hindi lang basta-basta gawin mo yung rational ability mo. What Aristotle wants is for you to do it in the most excellent manner. And what is that? Well, that is virtue or arete. Okay? So for Aristotle, a virtuous life enables the person to cultivate and fulfill his or her nature. Meaning, from the very start, a person may not have the strength, no, to guide his or her actions in accord to reason. Kasi we have passions and feelings because of which we desire some actions that are pleasurable. Now, with reason, we will realize that these actions that are pleasurable are not good in themselves. Yun yung punto rito. They are good. Sige, sabihin na natin, tanggapin natin, these pleasurable actions are good, but not good in themselves. That is why after experiencing these actions, no, you don't stay happy for a long time. Okay? You don't stay happy for a long time. After experiencing these bodily pleasures, you need to do them again to experience again the pleasure, whatever that is. Okay? That means, hindi lahat ng oras na nagagawa mo yan, happy ka. Kaya nga, it's not the highest good. The highest good is fulfilling your own nature. Now, how do we direct ourselves to that highest good? Considering the fact that there are times, maybe most of the time, we pursue the desires and passions that we feel. How do we direct ourselves towards that highest good, towards that intrinsic good, and not the individual various instrumental goods that we indulge ourselves in, behaving as if it's the lost kingdom, di ba? So how? Yan, need ng virtue. Virtue, sorry. For Aristotle, a virtuous life enables the person to cultivate and fulfill his or her nature. Let's contrast it with endowments. Endowments are given by nature, meaning we possess them first Kasi nga, given by nature, we were born with them, and then we use them in action after. Like our sense faculties. We were first born with eyes, with nose, with tongues, with, well, all other senses. And after, we can use them. Pero iba yung virtues. Virtues are not received from nature but cultivated. Meaning, tinitrain natin sarili natin, no? To be virtuous. We use and practice them first before we can acquire or possess them. To, let's emphasize that. We use and practice them. You were born without the virtues. Okay? You were born with sense faculties. Kaya, ang dali-dali nating i-pursue yung mga desires and passions and feelings. Because the senses are used to, sense them, di ba? Pero yung virtue, we were not born with it. But it's the only way by which we achieve or we direct ourselves towards that highest good. And we can only do that if we cultivate, we practice, no? We cultivate virtues. This can be lost by disuse as well, no? Anong example nito? Sense of justice, prudence, courage, fortitude, and many more. Yan, nade-develop yan. Nade-develop yan by doing them, no? By practicing them, by making it habitual. Okay? So we become just by the practice of just actions. Self-controlled by exercising self-control. And courageous by performing acts of courage. There are two major classifications of virtues. For Aristotle, we have the intellectual virtues and the moral virtues. So these virtues originate from and develop through teaching. And these virtues allow us to think rationally. The moral virtues are formed by habit. Ito, ganun din, teaching. No? Pero kasi yung intellectual virtues, not necessarily na you practice. Andito yung part ng practice. No? Okay. May isang may isang intellectual virtue na need to practice. Yung phronesis, no? Yung practical judgment, practical reasoning. Kasi nga, it's reasoning that leads to action. Now, look at the difference between the two. Intellectual virtues allow us to think rationally. Moral virtues allow us to handle our desires and emotions rationally. And you see their reason talaga. No? Examples are courage, temperance, liberality, magnificence, pride, honor, good temper, friendliness, truthfulness, wit, friendship, justice, and a lot more. So virtues are different from moral actions as well. Virtues are internal, while moral actions are external. Okay. Virtues are state of character, while moral actions are state of actions, doing the right thing. As a state of character, it must become part of one's nature or personality. Virtue then demands that the right act flow effortlessly from the personality of its character trait. So dito lalabas yung character ethics, that we should have first the character, and from which, no, from that virtuous character, right actions will flow effortlessly. Okay? So meaning, to make sure that you do something good, you must have a virtuous character. Moral actions are doing the right thing to the right person, at the right time, in the right manner, and to the right extent. Because of this distinction, we can now understand why a bad person can do some good and a virtuous person can succumb to evil deeds. Okay? So, maiintindihan na natin yan. No? Corrupt politicians can do good actions, but that will not necessarily say that they are good persons. Good persons may do bad deeds, but that will never necessarily mean that the good person is already bad. Okay? If virtue is a state of character, then moral action must flow effortlessly from this good-natured soul of a virtuous person. Yan ang focus natin ngayon. Okay. So, if virtue is a state of character, yung pagiging tao, that means to say that good action flows effortlessly from the good person. Siyempre, good person yan. Automatically, the good person is the source of good actions. This means as well that a virtuous person from whom good deeds effortlessly flow must experience pleasure in doing good or in acting virtuously. Okay, hindi yung masakit ang loob mong tumulong or gumagawa ka ng tama pero mabigat sa loob mo, no? Hindi ganoon yung virtuous person. Meaning, hindi effortless yung pag-flow ng good actions as it were sa'yo if tumutulong ka pero labag sa kalooban mo. Pinipilit mo lang kasi you need to establish an image. No? Example, a compassionate person therefore does not only help people in distress but does so with enthusiasm and joy in doing so. Hence, education for Aristotle includes bringing up people from childhood to feel pleasure and pain towards the proper things. Okay? Kasi, dapat, if you're a good person, you feel good in helping. So, initially kasi, as we have mentioned a while back, human beings are naturally oriented towards physical pleasure. And sometimes, most of the times, moral actions require us to temper our physical nature for the sake of a higher good. Okay, and children initially, okay, would think that something good is something pleasurable. Okay, and will equate pain with something bad. So, dapat education will make children realize that not all pains are the education should make children realize na there are things that you do good that would physically, make you feel pain. Like, gusto mo yung chocolate pero may gutom kang friend, no? Yung kailangan mong hatian. Sometimes, ang una-unang experience mo dyan is pain, no? Or, wag na lang sana. Education needs to show these children na doing so must not be painful. Okay? Doing so must be pleasurable. But if virtue is a product of habit, okay, focus on this, product of habit, a state of character, and an action that we enjoy doing, ang tanong, how is it different from vice? Kasi it appears that the same definitions, the same aspects are in vices, no? Vices are products of habit, state of character, and actions that we enjoy. Lalong-lalo na, di ba? Bisyo ang uminom ng alak, manigarilyo, di ba? Maglaro ng games hanggang madaling araw. So how do we differentiate virtue from vice? If it appears that somehow they are defined in the same way. Okay? For Aristotle, dito yung difference nila, virtue is the mean between two extremes. So virtue is the moderation part. And vice is the two extremes. And these two extremes are called excess and deficiency. So if you imagine a continuum, for example, ito yung extremes. Ito yung excess, sobra. Ito yung deficiency, kulang. Itong dalawang to, okay, as you move towards those extremes, you move towards vice. Nasaan yung mesotes, yung mean? Ito, no? Ito yung virtue. The mean between the two forces of excess and deficiency. Choosing the virtuous mean, okay, itong position na yan, between the two vicious extremes, itong dalawang yan, is the role of reason. So that's where reason comes in. The life of moderation is a life where reason is in control. Okay? So, if we go back to our previous discussions kanina, your essential nature and function is not a rational being who must act rationally, behave rationally. Happiness consists in the fulfillment of that function. And how does your reason work? Well, it chooses the virtuous mean between two extremes. So the virtuous life is a life where reason is in control. Okay? You may now reflect how much of your life so far has been under the control of your reason. This is one way of looking at Aristotle's point. No? These are a list of virtues. No? Ito sila. Ito yung mean between the opposite extremes of excess and deficiency. Look at courage, for example. If there's too much courage, that's foolhardiness. It's a vice. If there's very, very few or very, very less, you tend to be coward. The virtuous position is in the mean. No? Courage. Ano ba maganda example dito? Yan, temperance. Okay? Too much is overindulgence. Inhibition is pinipilit mo yung sarili mo to the extent na hindi ka na nag-enjoy, wala ka nang nare-receive. Ito naman, ang dami mong nare-receive. Inuubos mo lahat. So, hindi magandang super indulgent ka. Hindi rin magandang wala na, dinedenay mo sarili mo. The virtuous life in which reason is control is yan, the temperance. Okay? Between proper pride, you have vanity and inferiority. Between boastfulness and false modesty, truthfulness is the virtue. Between irascibility, yung high blood, magagalitin, and apathy is wala lang. Hindi siya affected.
Hindi siya emotionally affected, wala siyang pakialam. You have virtue of patience. Shyness, shamelessness, modesty ang virtue. So on and so forth. Now, more considerations. The mean and the extremes are relative to the agent. So we don't have a standard units of measurement, a standard scale true to all. No, walang ganyan na standard scale na zero yan and then 20, 20 and then lagyan natin ng point system sa gitna. Wala yan kasi nakadepende sa agent. Example, nga naman no, the virtuous mean is not the same between a weightlifter. Sorry, let me remove that. Yan. Okay. A weightlifter and an ordinary person as regards food intake. Hindi mo pwedeng sabihin, pareho lang ang kinakain ng weightlifter at saka yung ordinary person na hindi medyo active ang buhay, physically speaking. Kasi obviously the weightlifter would require more energy, more carbohydrates, more sugar, starch for that matter. Another is a moderate workout is not the same between an occasional jogger and an Olympic athlete. Syempre, siguro yung moderate na jog ng Olympic athlete baka hectic na yon sa occasional jogger. Kaya ang basis natin is yung tao, no, yung agent. So Aristotle admits that the mean does not apply also to all cases. Kasi may mga actions talaga na really, really bad by nature like envy, adultery, murder. Okay? Like, for example, come to think of it, it is not possible to commit adultery with the right woman at the right time and in the right manner. Walang ganun. Walang right, right, right. Automatically bad talaga lahat yan. There is no moderation, excess, or deficiency in this example. Now, what do you think of Miss Catriona Gray's answer? No? So this is a question that I leave to you, no? As an example kung ano ba yan, was she speaking of moderation as in Aristotle's golden mean or not? And that ends my short lecture on virtue ethics. Thank you.